What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the TackleTime podcast. Oh man, it's early for me as I'm recording this, and I can't believe it's episode 21 already. Oh man, I want to thank you guys for sticking with it here and listening in. I definitely appreciate it. Appreciate all you guys who comment and give us good feedback. If you like the show, if you don't like the show, drop a comment on Facebook, on Instagram, shoot me an email, whatever. Let me know what you think. Definitely want to hear some feedback and see what we can do better as we go. But as I said, this is episode 21. So 21, we are talking about what are we talking about? Oh, canoe camping, fishing up in remote wilderness. That's what we're talking about. So our guest today is an experienced Army major, if I remember rightly, and he has a love for getting out in the wilderness and going out with a few buddies and kind of roughing it for a few days. And they go up to a couple lakes up in Canada, and he just has a blast. They enjoy themselves. I thought this would be a good conversation just to explore the thought of getting out in the wilderness and actually, for all you backpackers or guys who like camping. I mean, this is nothing new to you, but for anybody who hasn't thought about this, some form of a small fishing vessel or watercraft, even that's a larger kayak or canoe. I mean, you can get a lot of gear in there. You can go to a lot of different places and hang out and really enjoy and have a good time. So that's what we're going to talk about. And we'll talk a little bit about fishing. I think realistically this is more about the experience than anything. So I really hope you enjoy it. I had a great time talking with our guest today. Before we jump into that, have you guys checked out tacklebuys.com? So tacklebuys.com is everything, or it has everything that you would need for your fishing gear, journey, all that stuff. So if you're looking for a new rod, new reel, maybe you want to save a little money. So TackleBuys compiles all of the best deals on the web for gear that you probably already like. So if you're looking for a new Shimano rod or Shimano reel, excuse me, if you're looking for a new, G Loomis rod, whatever it is, if you're looking for a new piece of fishing gear, and you want to save a few bucks, make sure you check out TackleBuys. We're going to have all of the major and small retailers online who sell fishing gear, everything from Cabela's to Fish USA to even some small independent shops. And some of those places can give you some great deals once in a while. So we help you find the best deals so you don't have to search for them. So check out tacklebuys.com the next time you are needing to buy new gear. So we're going to jump into this episode. All right. Tonight, we have Brandon with Dust Off Fishing joining us. Brandon, please say hello to everybody listening in.
Hello there, and thanks for listening in. Looking forward to it.
Definitely. We were just talking, Brandon, just before we started, that your Instagram page and like a lot of what you have on your Instagram and social media is related to your work profession in the Army and active duty. Can you tell everybody a little bit about that for those who don't know about you?
Yeah, so I'm a major in the United States Army. I'm also a Black Hawk pilot, and I work for a aviation maintenance unit in Springfield, Missouri. My history or my background in aviation is medical evacuation and attack aviation. So the Instagram profile is Dust Off Fishing, which is kind of a ode to medical evacuation and combat. That's the call sign that we all use for helicopters that are picking up wounded soldiers off the battlefield. And yeah, so I actually kind of toyed around with a couple names, and my buddy was like, "Hey man, you should just stick with that. I think it's cool." And so I've kind of gotten a lot of veterans and other folks on Instagram that's like, "Yeah, dude, we knew you were military. We knew you were a veteran when we saw your handle." And so like when this dude, when somebody says, "Hey, yeah, I just got off active duty. I'm staying in Germany because my wife is here." And, I can say that's a hard life and I have instant credibility. I don't have to like explain. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So it's kind of
for
cool.
sure. No, that's awesome. So where's the crossover between flying Blackhawks and all the crazy exciting stuff that you do in your day job, I'll say, to the transition to wanting to do an Instagram page all about fishing?
Yeah, so when I kind of got to back up to like how it started, but and we'll kind of get into this later. But a group of my friends go up every year to Canada to fish, and I had gone on this trip 20 years ago when I was in high school, and anyway, I had always wanted to go back and got the opportunity, and so a couple years ago, don't mind my dog. A couple
No, no
years
worries.
ago, I went on that trip. I kind of got the bug, and then I kind of found that, like a lot of people that have a hobby, fishing kind of feeds my inner calm, and so there's a lot of stress involved with what I do, and it takes up a lot of time and energy. And so if I can
Definitely.
get out on the water, that really helps me kind of get to a happy place and kind of feel my roots a little bit and forget about the world for a little bit.
Now, when you went on that first trip, were you very new with fishing? That was an all new experience for you, or were you, somewhat experienced and kind of wanted to dive more in? How did that start?
Yeah, so like a lot of people, I grew up at a lake, and I did, pan fishing and worm fishing, and I wasn't real serious about it, but I had some background in it. But my wrestling coach had actually taken a group every year, and so I went. I was 16, and I went with a bunch of college age dudes. And to be honest with you, it was kind of miserable. Took a hard tackle box, left it on the first portage, had like one pole, was not physically ready for the demands of the trip, got like 1,000 mosquito bites. And, but in all that misery, there's that one day. It's kind of like when you go golfing and you hit that one shot that gets you coming back to golf the next time.
Hmm.
You could totally suck at golf, but you hit one hole in one, you're hooked, right? And so I had one day where I caught like 30 smallmouth, giant largemouth, a ton of lake trout,
Oh,
and
wow.
we just got into them. And ever since then, I've never had a fishing day like that up to the point where I was able to go back again. So I I knew that I wanted to go back again. I physically got myself ready to do that, and we went. And then kind of at that point, the learning curve was steep, and I got lucky there. But it's kind of a place you can go and suck at fishing, but still catch fish because
Okay.
there's just nobody fishes it. So
Sure.
it's
Sure.
not pressured. They've never seen a lure before, and so it's so easy to catch fish.
So this trip, which that's actually what we're talking about tonight, is part of you going on a trip to Canada, and you guys are absolute remote wilderness, having a good time, hanging out and just relaxing, but also you know out there trekking it out. But we're also going to be talking about fishing from a canoe and some of those restraints that really come with the whole concept of being in a canoe. You only bring so much gear. You're not in a big bass boat, where you can have everything you could ever want. How, I guess, what inspired you and all those guys to go all the way up into Canada, instead of, maybe staying home and going out into, you know, the Missouri wilderness instead of, up into Canada?
I guess a couple things. One is, I'm always up for a challenge. Nobody likes to play games with me because I'm going to compete, and my wife hates playing board games with me. My coworkers hate playing like ultimate football or frisbee with me because I'm out there to win.
I
And
gotcha.
if you're not playing like I'm playing, then you're not playing hard enough. So it's a challenge. We portage and we canoe 30 miles in a day on the first day, and we get to where we're going to get, and we set. And that is a physical
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
grind. So I think one, it's challenging. Two, like I told you earlier, you can catch some of the biggest fish you've ever seen and have absolutely no clue how you did it. And you can't do that here. You can't do that on
Sure.
Table Rock Lake. On Table Rock Lake, you have to know, what lure, what place, what time, what the water temperature is, what the sky is doing, what the barometric pressure is. At this place, you get up every day and you catch 40 fish. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And then you go eat them and go to bed. do it again the next day.
Sure.
So one, it's easy, and two, it's hard.
Got it. No, I get that. That makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, I think for a lot of guys, the whole challenge is like, we had my buddy Ryan, we had him on, and we were talking about muskie fishing, and muskie fishing for a lot of guys is that, catching the unicorn, so to say, because they are so evasive and, they're so hard to get. But when you get one, it's like a magical moment. So finding that magical lake, in this aspect, it's kind of the same concept, which is really cool. So I can definitely respect that for sure.
Yeah, don't they call muskies the fish of 10,000 casts?
Yeah, exactly. Sure do. And there's plenty of reason for that. So they've accrued the name for a reason. So walk us through, for somebody who is still trying to wrap their head around, how do these guys get all the way up into Canada, get to this beautiful lake that they can catch all these fish? And like, where do you start, or I should say, where do you guys start? What does it look like, and what's the trip actually kind of be?
Yeah, so we meet up here in Missouri, and then we take a carpool up to Crane Lake, Minnesota, which is the northernest part of Minnesota.
Gotcha.
And we get hooked up with this dude named Anderson, and he's got an outfitter up there. He puts us in a boat and he takes us up with it. We rent the canoes from him, and they get the permits, and and they drop us and pick us up. And so really it's just we get there, and he kind of comes up to us, and we go through the map, and we just kind of put a game plan together with him. And those local guys always have like the best intel.
Sure.
And anyway, so we pick a spot, we all agree on it. We have a couple contingencies, because sometimes you get someplace, there might be a campsite that's taken, or it might not be usable or big enough or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we go, and it's a little reckless, I suppose, but it's also like part of the fun.
Definitely. So how many guys are you normally fitting in one canoe? I mean, is it just two guys, or are you packing a whole bunch more? I guess I'm trying to envision the size of it.
Yeah, so we take 14-foot canoes, but they're carbon fiber or some
okay.
version of that. And then there's two in a canoe. And I don't know how much canoeing you do, but you can kind of see behind me, there's a paddle here.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend, if you ever decide to go on a trip like this, that you buy a paddle, because they're lighter and
Gotcha. Sure.
a little more functional. But there's two of us, and then we've got basically two packs. Each have a pack, and they're like waterproof packs. Big, I think they're 115 liter.
Yeah, sure.
Waterproof packs. Yeah. And then we just basically fit all of our food, all of our clothes, all of our fishing stuff in two bags, and then we have a 70 liter or 50 liter food bag.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, the canoes are heavy, and the portages are hard. I mean, the canoes aren't heavy because they're carbon fiber, but when they're loaded up like that with two grown men,
yeah,
they're heavy.
So that's I'm thinking of when we started this conversation, I'm thinking of going fishing with my buddy out of his old 30-year-old Old Town canoe, which probably is 3 or 4 times the weight of a nice carbon fiber and all decked out canoe that you guys are probably thinking of. But no, that's really interesting. The whole, I mean, you guys are going a long way to get to the lakes that you want to go. I mean, 30 miles in one day, that's a lot.
Yeah, what's kind of interesting about it is we take a Garmin inReach up there, so we have
Okay.
text capability, reach back in case we have an emergency. But there are people that don't do that. And kind of interestingly enough, the last year we went, we ran into a group that a dude snapped his ankle.
Oh, wow.
on one of the portages, and they didn't have any reach back. And so they were stuck at a portage for hours. I'm talking like 8 hours before we came along, and we were able to contact their. And then when you have an emergency like that, there's ways that people can come save you,
Sure.
And so they ended up saving that guy. But the 30 miles is not really something that I enjoy, because I feel like, when you're doing it, you're passing all these great fishing spots. You're like, oh, I bet there's a ton of fish right there. Oh, I bet there's a ton of fish. But it's a technique, and we people are often like, are you kidding me that you guys did that all in one day? And we just like it almost feels like a dog sled team. We just mush and mush
Sure,
and
sure.
mush. It's a long day.
That's a good analogy, actually. So as you're going, do you guys ever go, 5 miles or whatever, hit a lake that you want to go and stop for the night, or are you going the entire length out and then you come the entire length back in one shot, or do you kind of stop in segments, so to say?
Yeah, the trip just goes straight through all the way up, and then on the way back, we do kind of like an overnight. So we'll do one overnight someplace, and then we'll overnight right at the put out.
Got it.
So we'll have like a more gradual departure.
Sure.
But
sure.
the way up there is always an ass kicker.
Yeah, I bet. No, you need to be in pretty good shape to handle that for sure.
You'd be surprised. I've seen some like people that are you just need to have a lot of good upper body strength, to be honest. Like, if you're kind of like a big guy, you do better than like, little guys. Little guys
Gotcha.
don't do all that well. So yeah.
So what kind of gear? Obviously, you're bringing some amount of food. You're catching a lot of what you're going to eat. I mean, what kind of gear, food? Like, what's that look like? If we're making the trek up there.
Yeah. So we it's kind of a science, but basically what we end up doing is we end up planning our evening meals. We plan meal by meal by meal, and generally speaking, for the group meals, we plan walleye tacos and mac and cheese one night. We plan baked fish and rice another night, and then we plan fried fish and stuffing another night, and then you just multiply that by 2, and then everybody's responsible. Like, our group will bring the rice and the onions, their group will bring the batter and the oil.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then so the only thing we're really like as a group doing is dinners, and then breakfast is generally on you. Lunch is if you can do one of 2 things. You can plan for like a shore lunch where you have a couple walleye, you eat them for lunch, or it kind of just depends. But the food is everything in these trips is based off experience. And if I were recommending anything to the a first timer that did this trip, is when you walk through your day in your mind, and so you to the point where it's like, I get up out of my tent, I walk over and I make my coffee. Okay, do I have coffee for that day?
Exactly.
Do I have sweetener for that day? And then I just I move through the day and I plan everything and it's all in like packages for that moment. So you have a breakfast package, you have a snack, you have lunch package, you have another snack,
sure.
And then you, even if you're a drinker, you know how much whiskey you want for that day, and you have to pack that up too. So everything that you take, you're gonna use, and you're gonna take nothing else.
No, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, for me, like what I'm envisioning is like the backpacking community. It's the same thing. If you're going to go on a trek on the Appalachian Trail or on the Rocky Mountain, it's the same kind of concept. So that makes a lot of sense to me. But I don't know how many backpackers we have really listening in. It's hard to break down a day, so definitely down to every detail. That's tough.
Well, it's yeah. Then you throw in like, okay, what lures am I going to need?
Well, and that's it. Then you have to pack all your gear. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then, like, it's almost like an exercise in like mental sanity, because, you can really get down a rabbit hole on any of this. And like you said, the backpacker stuff, the first time I went up there, I was like, okay, I need, my spoon weighs an ounce and my sleeping bag is real lightweight, and I'm trying to save all this weight, and I end up being cold, or I don't have enough, or, I'm out of food. And so the second time I went, I was like, I'm just going to pack what I want and see how it goes. And to be honest with you, the second way, when you have a good partner and a kind of a big canoe, you can get away with a little bit more than like those AT guys. Have you ever read the book AWOL on the Appalachian Trail?
No, I haven't. No.
It's a good one. You should read it. It's I don't know. It's about this basically a guy who did a through hike, but he writes really well. It's really good.
Gotcha. I'll check that out. So I'm envisioning trying to, I mean, for me, for my fishing setup, I like the things that I bring, I fish out of a kayak, so I only bring so much stuff, but even still in the world of kayak fishing, I still bring a relatively small amount of stuff out on the water, but I'm trying to envision, trekking all that stuff up there, what it's like for you. I mean, you guys are probably bringing, probably the bare minimum, just the essentials that you might actually need, or you putting on some frills in there. What's that really look like?
Almost exactly like you do with your kayak, to be honest with you. I mean,
Okay.
most people have tackle backpacks or
Mhm.
soft-sided. So they'll have their, soft-sided baits. They'll have their Plano boxes, 4 or 5 of
Yeah.
them in a tackle box. The thing that makes it so much different for me is I like to take a bucket. I know people kind of talk shit on a bucket, but I like to take like a Home Depot bucket and
Yeah.
stick it right in front of me, and everything goes in the bucket.
Gotcha.
I'm talking fish grippers. I'm talking fishing poles. You name it. I have a picture, and I got so much crap for this bucket, but
But it
it
works.
works. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you can do is you can take this bucket, and then, like there's a ton of bucket hacks on YouTube, but like one
Oh,
of the
for
things I
sure.
really like is they have that tool belt that sits on a bucket,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
can just put all your crap in there. And one of the worst things, this on a kayak is like trying to figure out where the hell I'm going to put this lure that I just took off my pole, because I
Oh
don't want
yeah.
to stick it back in my tackle box. And that's just a perfect place for those sorts of things. So I like it.
No, that's I'm trying to envision the bucket full of overfilling full of gear.
I'm gonna instant message you a picture of this bucket, but yeah, and I got so much crap for this bucket. It's because we'd be on a portage and I'd be carrying this bucket, and they'd be like,
Oh, okay.
and I'm like, it's great. You can poop in it, you can sit on it, you can
Well,
stick stuff in
put
it.
your fish in it, whatever. Yeah, for
Yeah,
definitely.
so good.
Fuck yeah. That's all. No, I like the bucket idea personally. I'm all about multi-use. You can use something more than one way, and you don't use a tackle box so many ways.
Well, this, you don't want your stuff getting wet. It's hard sided, so you don't have to worry about it, getting
Mhm.
smashed. And like I said, it was almost perfect to just, I mean, set your poles in it, just stick them in kind of like you would in a kayak, where you've got your black pack behind you and your poles are sticking straight up. Same thing with the bucket, out of the way, straight ahead, no
Yeah,
problems.
for sure. So, for somebody who wants to do a canoe trip, even if it's not, a week long, maybe they just want to go on an overnight, or they want to even do it. I guess this could realistically apply to any small watercraft, whether it be a kayak or canoe or whatever, but they want to try and do an overnight, in this kind of vein. What's something or a few things that you think they should know before they get started? Obviously, we talked about, space constraints and all that, but what do you think would be helpful?
You saying, okay, so personally, I think having the right type of watercraft is important.
Mhm.
So like you had talked about, if you're going to plan on going on a long trip like that, taking an old town that weighs 100 pounds versus taking one like we have that was, I think, 26 pounds is what it
Oh,
weighs,
wow.
is going to save you a lot of energy. And then when you get to where you're going, you're not going to have the functionality to do what you want to do when you get there. I think, honestly, the thing that really sticks out to me mostly is that you're prepared for the worst case scenario. What I mean by that is, not just medically speaking, but like, if it's wet, do I have a fire source, and
Hmm.
how am I going to get that fire source? And do I have a proper tent? And is the
Yeah,
tent,
yeah,
and then where do I pick my campsite so that, I'm above the water line, so I don't have water pooling in my camps, all the basic stuff that I think people probably aren't used to, um, having unexpected weather scenarios. But I also think having equipment that is sturdy enough that, it can be multifunctional, that's
yeah.
also important, so it doesn't take up a lot of space. And then lastly is, I like to have hardy equipment that isn't expensive. So if I have an issue, it's a good, I mean, you want to spend your money in the right spots. A
Hmm.
knife is a good example of that. A tent is a good example of that. A sleeping bag is a good example of that. But,
Yeah, yeah,
things like a coffee cup, do you really need a $50 Stanley,
yeah.
vacuum sealed thermos, or can you just go get an Ozark Trail for $12?
Exactly.
That's the kind
Yeah,
of thing that I would say, hey, just, if you have the money, fine, but if you don't need to spend it, don't spend it. Spend it on the stuff that's going to last
yeah.
forever.
Absolutely,
Hey,
absolutely. So, for you guys, when you're out there, all the way out in the wilderness, are you fishing from the canoes, or are you mostly doing bank fishing? What's that really look like?
Yeah, so what's great about the canoe is we usually take like some graphs with us. So we'll bring like a hummingbird. I forget the name of it, but it's like the one with the pole that you can like attach it to the side of the canoe,
Oh, okay.
and it's like a little like a hummingbird 101.
Gotcha.
And so we've got one of those, and then a buddy of mine actually took a transducer with a magnet, and then took a Helix 7 and put it in his canoe.
Oh, okay.
And kind of my rule of thumb was, well, actually, to back up, I'd never used a fish finder before this trip. So the learning curve was steep on that. But generally speaking, what we do is we find structure, just like we do here. We find structure, we see a couple fish on it, we basically throw an anchor down, and then we got to make sure, obviously, the nose is pointed into the wind, because canoes are
Otherwise,
weather
you
vane.
float all around. Yeah.
Yeah. And then a lot of what we did for techniques is Ned rigs and drop shots.
Oh,
Just
okay.
kind of like video game fishing. I'll see a fish on the monitor. It'll be a foot off the floor. I'll throw a drop shot with an 8-inch leader on there. I'll set it right on the side, and I'll do 2 of them. And the boat creates enough action for those fish that you don't have to like constantly be jigging your
Yeah,
poles.
yeah.
And then I'm snatching whichever one has a fish on it. And I caught 100 fish like that. I mean,
Wow.
it's like the laziest fishing I've ever done in my entire life. Just set 2 poles off on the side. Oh, there's a 4-pound smallmouth. Oh, there's a 25-inch walleye. Oh, another 4-pound smallmouth.
Wow.
And we just be dragging them up.
That's awesome. So, as what you were saying, you guys are normally eating the walleye. It sounded like.
Yeah, so we only eat what we need to eat. So kind of generally, walleye are kind of like sensitive fish. So if you put them on a stringer for any amount of time, they're going to die. So you kind of have to be real diligent. But what we'll generally do is we'll keep in the morning, and we'll all kind of meet up in the middle of the day, do an inventory. And then if we have enough to eat for dinner, then we'll throw the rest of them back.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
in the morning, what we'll always do, kind of like in like a bass tournament, if we have a small walleye and then we catch a bigger one, we'll replace it to a number that we, 3 or 4 each, and then we'll just keep rotating them out so that they're not getting killed. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, we generally try not to eat smallmouth and or pike, because I don't know how to clean a pike. I hear they're hard to clean.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's cool. That's so most people would frown upon eating smallmouth, but you guys are loving it and doing it no problem.
Well, that's another thing that kind of gets me, that I'm new to on this Instagram thing, is how people like take offense to like putting a smallmouth on a stringer, or like holding a trout by the mouth, or like these are things that were new to me
Sure.
3 months ago that I've kind of been made aware of. And so yeah, I'm a catch and release guy. Like even here, I don't really like to clean fish. The only reason I eat or clean fish there is because you have to do that to survive.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but we almost exclusively eat walleye. We'll eat a smallmouth occasionally if we don't have enough walleye. But
Gotcha. Okay.
that was not the case ever one time last year.
No, okay. I was just curious. I know there's a whole lot of animosity to people who eat bass, and I'm like, guys, I mean, it's a fish. If you want to eat it, like, go ahead.
I don't generally like eating bass. I've never not once eaten a largemouth bass.
I can't. I mean, I can't say that they're great eating, but I know plenty of people eat them, and plenty of people get upset that other people eat them. So
I just don't get keeping. I was talking to this guy on the Instagram, and he's like at a public lake. It was like a nice bass, and like this dude was keeping this one bass on a stringer. And to me, I just don't understand, if there's a Piggly Wiggly down the road, you can just go get yourself a steak or a nice salmon or like, why? I mean, like, put the fish back so somebody else can catch it.
I hear you.
Or it can spawn and make more fish. I don't get that. But if people don't have a choice, that's another issue altogether.
I totally get it. No, I know. I see it from both perspectives. It's not like it's not a big thing in my book, but for some people it is, and that's cool. I get it.
So where do you fish? Where are you from?
I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm just south of Pittsburgh. So
Okay.
we do have some pretty nice lakes. A lot of what's out here is mostly um, light. Like I would say like river fishing light. Like a lot of them are pretty shallow. A lot of them you can take a kayak on. Have some deeper spots, pull it through, go to the next section, and all that. Um, but like you can go a couple, couple 2-3 hours north, and you hit Erie. We have all kinds of mountain lakes and stuff a little further into the mountains. But I mean, there's good fishing for sure. So that's really why I like the kayak, because it's pretty universal in that way. It's obviously not a bass boat. You have a lot more flexibility where you can take it, or something like a John boat even. You can get it into a lot of smaller spots too. So
What kind of kayak do you fish out of?
I have an Old Town Predator.
Okay, like a PDL or just
Just one of the old style, one of the paddle type.
uh-huh.
But this next year, that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to upgrade to some form of a pedal kayak, whatever that might be. So I'm thinking one of the native Titans or something like that. So
Yeah. So
that's
I've
the
got
direction
a
I'm leaning.
Slayer Propel,
Oh, do you? Okay.
and yeah, and I almost bought a Titan Propel, but if I had to do it over again, I would, because they're wider,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
the Slayer is a little dicey on
Okay.
occasion.
Gotcha.
Uh, you know, I don't think it's not anything you can really. I mean, honestly, like feel like you can stand up and with any sort of effect in
I
that
feel you.
kayak.
Well, and that's what my reasoning for that. I'm trying to enable myself to do other things in the kayak, not just fishing. I'd like to actually do waterfowl hunting out of it. So something like the Titan makes a lot of sense for that. Obviously, with it being a lot more stable and a little more room. I mean, you can go online and watch videos of the native Titans. Guys walk from end to end, and like bow to stern, and like there's no problem whatsoever. But they're with the pedal drive, it's not as bad, because obviously you can move from place to place without beating yourself up trying to paddle the thing. That's totally different. When you got a big boat that you have to paddle, it's one thing, but when you have a bigger boat that you can pedal, it's something totally different. So that for me makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it enables, a lot more control in whatever the moment is that
Hmm.
you're trying to control.
Definitely. No, it's a lot more flexibility. So that's on the board for next year. Nothing's happened yet, but that are definitely an upgrades in order. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice.
well, Brandon, you have any last minute tips or thoughts or anything you want to share with anybody who thinks that they want to go and hit it hard and go do a week-long canoe trip up in Canada, up in the crazy
Yeah.
Canadian?
So I talk to a lot of people, and the only advice I give anybody is, a lot of times people say, well, someday I'm going to go do this, or someday I'm going to, it's like someday isn't really a date on the calendar. And it's just your way of saying that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Or, and I'd say just do it. I've wasted 40 years of my life, and I've only been on 3 of these trips. And if I'd have done it like I should have been doing it, I would have had 20 of them. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
the water there is so pristine that it's just unimaginable beauty. There's otters, beavers, eagles, loons, bears. I mean, unencumbered wildlife as far as you can see, quiet, beauty, stars. Um, it's something that I'll never ever ever forget, and I'll always have. And so my only advice is do it, and do it as soon as you possibly can, because
Awesome.
it's cheap too. It's like, you go to Disney World, it's $5,000,
Yeah.
seven grand. You do this trip just for the fishing and the permits, it's $600.
Wow. No, it's a lot more affordable than I expected you to say, for sure.
Yeah, and then the rest is up to you. You can spend as much money as you want on gear, as much money as you want on the other stuff, but it's just the fishing trip itself is like $600, 660, something like that.
That's awesome.
And you could get 10 Disney's or one Disney or 10 Canadian fishing trips for that, so I know it's not, I want to do it justice. I don't feel like I've done it quite enough justice, but you run into people from all over the world that go to this place. I talk to people on Instagram all the time, and they're like, where is this magical fishing hole? There's if you go on my page, dustoff_fishing, and if you see a big fish or a big smallmouth, chances are it's from this place that we're talking about.
That's awesome.
It's not uncommon for people to catch 30, 32, 33-inch walleye, 45-inch pike. I caught a 38-inch pike on a curly tail grub that's like this big.
Damn.
So
I know somebody listening is gonna give me some hate mail if I don't ask you, but the place that you're going to, is this somewhere that like people can go to, or is this the super special secret that
no, man, we went to Sturgeon Lake the first year and Iron Lake last year, and they're in the boundary waters. You can look them up in the Quetico Provincial Park. Sturgeon Lake is it's an 8-mile long lake. So if you want to go where we went, you got to go all the way to the other side.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which is like crossing Lake Erie in a canoe, is what it feels like. The never-ending horizon.
Yeah, I could see that being pretty painful.
And the wind in your face. So, but yeah, just check them out. Check out Mark Anderson. He's got an Outfitters up there. He's a quality dude. He's got good prices. He's take care of you. They make you the best breakfast sandwich before you leave. They've got awesome lodging there. They'll add the beer to your tab. It's cool.
That's awesome. Damn, man, I think I'm ready to go to Canada. I'm up.
Do it, brother. Do it up.
Man, this was awesome. I definitely want to thank you for. I think you did the Canadian trip justice. That's all I got to say. So at least putting it out there and describing it to us.
Yeah, I got to shout out my Canadian friends, Captain Wildlife on Instagram. He's up there in French Canada. Those guys are so lucky. They've got such great fishing. I'm just so jealous. A lot of people want to fish for 12-mouth largies or 12-pound largies in Texas or Georgia, but I'll take a 5-pound smallie in Wisconsin or Minnesota any day.
I gotcha. No, there's a lot of variety out there. Don't get stuck on one thing. That's what I keep saying. So
yeah, I'm a multi-species guy. You'll see that I've got everything from crappie to pike to bass to.
Oh yeah, I love it.
I'd love to go ocean fishing too.
Hey, just like you said, just go do it.
That's right. Someday.
Well, thanks again, man, for coming on. This was awesome. I had a great time with you. And I'll leave links to your social profile and all that stuff so people can find you and follow along with you and go see some of these gorgeous fish. So
appreciate you.
Thanks, man. We're going to cut this one off here.
All right, buddy. See ya.